In this video, I'm going to show you how to take an idea or concept or premise that you have for a book or novel and turn it into a scene-by-scene outline for the entire book that follows the framework of a best-selling novel. The framework that we're going to be using here comes from a book by Larry Brooks. It's called Story Engineering. Larry Brooks was a copywriter who wrote fiction on the side, and while he was going through training for movie script writing, he discovered some principles and frameworks that were being heavily used in the movie industry but had not really been applied systematically to books and novels. So basically in the movie industry, people already knew this framework is what works, so all scripts were sort of written to that specification. In the book world, the same thing sort of happened. All the best-selling books used the same framework, but it just hadn't really been as systematically identified as the go-to model that all new writers in the space were using to plan out and outline their books. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time trying to sell you on Larry's framework as the right approach to developing a book outline. I'm sold on it. I highly recommend you check out Story Engineering to understand it better. But for the purpose of this video, I'm just going to be showing you how to use it and how to use ChatGPT to turn any premise or concept you have into this fully built out book outline that follows the same framework that most bestsellers use. So with that said, let's look at the actual prompt I'm going to throw in here. And if you want to copy paste this prompt here, it's available as a free, non-gated blog post on my website. I'll put the link next to this video. But here's the prompt. So we basically just take ChatGPT through Larry Brooks' framework, which is setup, hook, inciting incident, first plot point, then part two. There's the protagonist reacts to the first plot point, stakes are raised, midpoint, which is the turning point in the book where it gets the protagonist more proactively involved due to something that happens. Stakes rise in the third act, or the third part here. You have the second plot point, which is the final injection of new information that leads to a significant revelation or decision. And then the fourth part, the resolution, this is where you have the climax, the resolution, the aftermath. So this is the framework that Larry teaches. Again, I'm sold on it. I'm just going to teach you how to use it. So we put that in. We ask ChatGPT to indicate that they can help us develop this premise into a book. It says yes. So then we come in and we just plug our premise in. So I'm going to pull a premise from one of Writing Prompt's all-time best, all-time most popular prompts. Humans once wielded formidable magical power, but with over 7 billion of us on the planet, mana has now spread far too thinly to have any effect. When hostile aliens reduce humanity to a mere fraction, the survivors discover an old power has begun to reawaken once again. So this is kind of cool prompt, fun prompt. If you're not familiar with mana, it's basically like the energy used to do magic. Different interpretations. We'll see how ChatGPT interacts with it. But we're going to take that. We're going to put, here's the premise and the premise. And now ChatGPT is going to plug this premise into this framework. So you can see here part one, the setup, hook. It's going to give us an idea for a hook related to this premise. Our story begins in a world where magic is just a myth from the past. The protagonist is fascinated and feels, a strange sensation one day as if an unknown power is trying to awaken him. Inciting incident, hostile aliens attack the Earth. Their technology is superior to ours. First plot point, the protagonist, having survived the initial attack, discovers that the mythical magic is now real and accessible to him. With so few humans left, the density of mana has increased significantly. Starts the journey. So you can see basically it's plugging the premise through this framework and creating an outline for the book. So as the protagonist learns more about the abilities, he discovers other survivors have developed powers as well. They have to learn to trust each other and work together to evade the aliens who are hunting them down. The stakes are raising as the aliens are trying to eliminate humanity on the Earth. The protagonist and his group of survivors learn about a prophecy from an ancient tome that hints at how they might be able to use their power to defeat aliens. And this hatches the plans. This is where the kind of the midpoint that Larry describes is where you go from kind of being on the defensive or kind of being like, just kind of figuring out the quest to really going on the offensive, hatching a plan, leading up to the second plot point, which is when the final injection of new information comes. The group uncovers the last piece of the prophecy, which reveals the necessity of significant sacrifice to ensure the survival. So it's giving us an idea of what that, that additional injection of information could be. And it leaves them with weighty decisions, marks the transition to the final phase, climax, resolution. So it's turning this premise into a full 4-part book. Okay, I'm jumping back in here real quick because I forgot to show something cool that I think really takes this to the next level, which is that we have interview powers with ChatGPT that we can use here to get more of the direction that we want. So, for example, this 4-part description that it gave me here, it's very fantasy leaning. So what I could ask is rewrite the previous 4-part book outline, but make it more speculative fiction as opposed to fantasy. And so what this is going to do is the thing that we just went through, it's very fantasy based. It's very kind of like magic and prophecies and things like that. But what if we wanted to take it in more of a scientific or speculative fiction direction? And that's what we can do. We have the power to basically look at what's being generated and add additional prompts to ChatGPT to help us take it in the direction that we want to go and think through plot points that would work in the new direction that we want to take. So you can see here, let's see how it did. Story begins in a world similar to ours, where the protagonist, a neuroscientist, stumbles upon an anomalous reading during a routine brain scan, something that suggests untapped human potential. Hostile aliens attack, their technology leads to significant destruction and loss of life. So we got some scientific foreshadowing here. After the attack, the protagonist realizes that the anomaly they had discovered is now manifesting as extraordinary cognitive and physical abilities in the remaining humans. This marks the beginning of a new era for humankind and the start of the protagonist's journey to understand and utilize these abilities. So maybe instead of like mana, you take more of like a quantum physics direction, that there's some sort of, thread here that is diluted across multiple, shared entities, but as the population shrinks, it's more concentrated in each individual. Again, it's taking you, by me asking, hey, I want to go in less of a fantasy direction and more of a scientific or speculative direction, it's giving me just that. So it gives us the ability to interact with ChatGPT to mold the direction that we want the book to go versus just plug the premise in, see what comes up, ideate from there. We can ideate from there and then feed it back into GPT to get more help in thinking about the new direction we want to take. So another layer to this that just makes it even more useful, and I wanted to highlight. Now here's the kicker. Now we can come in and say, write a 15-scene outline for part 1. And it's going to take part 1, everything described here, and break it up across 15 different scenes. Now, book writing, similar to filmmaking, it's a collection of scenes. You're basically using a sequence of scenes to deliver your information to the reader or viewer. And so ChatGPT is going to help us do exactly that. It's going to help break out this part 1 and each of these things we're trying to accomplish into 15 different scenes. Now, 15 is an arbitrary number here. I picked this number because the average novel is between 50 to 100 scenes. I aimed for 60, 15 per part. You can do whatever you want. It just felt like a reasonable number here. So it's going to break this into 15 parts. So introduction, a historian with a fascination for ancient tales of magic, introduction of the protagonist. So a scene that kind of like introduces us to who the main character is. The next scene, they experience a strange sensation. This could be revealed through like internal dialogue, external dialogue, something happening where something happens that triggers the sensation. Next scene is a day in the protagonist's life showing his obsession with ancient history. A scene kind of showing the sudden unexpected invasion. Protagonist's close encounter, they survive. Next scene, post-invasion, they discover the myth of magic has become real. The next scene, their first attempt to control the power results in an unintended and dramatic display. So you get the idea. It's taking you through a bunch of different things you want to accomplish in each scene. And it's up to you whether you use any of these or whether it just spurs ideas like about what you actually want to do here. But what is so cool to me about this is you can just take an idea and turn it into a 60-scene outline for a book, following a best-selling book framework. And the reason I think the best-selling framework is important is because for most people, what motivates them to continue creating is the response they get to what they create. So if you can from the beginning be making a plan for a book that's going to be more marketable, that's going to have a story that has more potential to either sell or at least receive a favorable response, that's going to motivate you to then go make another book. And ultimately, that's how great writing is produced, is people sit down and actually do the writing, and then they do it again, and they get better each time. And so my hope here is that a tool like this, I know it's absolutely going to be the case for me, but my hope is that a tool like this will empower more people who were really getting hung up on the concept and the structure and turning some cool ideas they had into an actual fleshed out idea and plan for a book. I'm hoping like this process will allow more writers to take the cool ideas in their head, play around in ChatGPT to create this full outline, and then just get to the fun part, which is the writing. Get to the actual process of writing the scenes, describing the characters, mastering your prose and style, making the language interesting to engage with and fun to read. And I'm hoping this will empower more people with a bigger variety of skills that they would bring to the process of creating a novel to actually get through the process of launching that first novel and learning what they're going to learn along the way. Through all the downsides that we're going to be dealing with as a result of AI and automation, it'd be really cool if we could add, creative renaissance to the outcome of this technology. I'm making this all freely available on my site. If you found any of this helpful, definitely sign up for my email list or subscribe to my YouTube channel. I'm going to be using this process to write my first novel in the fall. Really excited about that. Had previously been planning on putting fiction off for years until I could semi-retire and just devote like 2 full years to writing fiction. But with tools like this, I feel like I don't need to wait. Like I can start now. And I'm excited to do that. I hope you are too. I'll catch you later.